Hi, I am Jimar P. Zamoras.
Hi, I am NSCU Diputado.
Hi, I'm James Romel T. Duhay Lungsod.
Hi, I'm Mark Kevin G. Mamak.
And we are going to discuss Unit 2 entitled The Underlying Principles and Strategies. At the end of this unit, students will be able to describe how constructivism as a strategy works in the teaching of mathematics, describe how teaching for understanding can be used in mathematics teaching, describe how Dale's cone of experience is applicable in mathematics teaching and learning, and cite examples, and describe how other constructivism strategies can improve teaching and enhance learning in mathematics. Now, what is constructivism? It is the philosophy that suggests that information is created by learners rather than only passively taking in details.
Constructivism is a theory that states that rather than passively taking in information, learners generate knowledge. People develop their own representations and incorporate new information into their pre-existing knowledge as they encounter the world and reflect on it. And then, we have two mechanics that are related to constructivism. First, we have assimilation. Assimilation occurs when we modify or change new information to fit into our schemas or what we already know. It gives the new information our experience and adds to what we already exist in our minds. Second, we have accommodation. Accommodation is when we reconstruct or modify what we already know so that new information can fit in better. Constructivism is a theory of knowledge and learning based on the ideas listed below. First, learners construct understanding. Learners construct understanding or meaning by making sense of their experiences and fitting their own ideas into reality. Children construct thoughts, expectations, and explanation about natural phenomena to make sense of their everyday experiences. Second, to understand something is to know a relationship. To understand something is to know a relationship, where relationship is the process of how you are connected to the person. Third, all learning depends in prior knowledge. All learnings depends in prior knowledge is the amount and quality of prior knowledge positively influence both knowledge acquisition and the capacity to apply higher order cognitive problem-solving skills. Fourth and last is learning is enhanced by social interaction, where social interaction has a significant impact on learning. Interacting with other people has been shown to help learners organize their thoughts, reflect on their learning, and identify holes in their thinking. The follow article compares the traditional and constructivist classroom across several components. Traditional classroom. First, learning based on repetition. Through repetition, a skill is practiced and rehearsed over time and gradually becomes easier. As the student improves, he or she does not need to think consciously about the skill, freeing up mental resources to learn new skills and concepts. Second, teacher disseminate information, student receive knowledge. Where students are recipients of knowledge, teachers have a dialogue with students, helping students construct their own knowledge. Teacher's rule is directive rooted in authority. Teacher rule is interactive rooted in negotiation. Third, assessment through pen and paper testing. Paper and pencil assessment refer to traditional student assessment format such as written tests and also to standardized tests that ask students to use pencil to fill in bubbles on the scannable answer sheet. And lastly, student work alone. For constructivist classroom, we have learning is interactive, building on what the student already know. Second, teacher facilitate the student construction of knowledge, where a teacher is the main person which help in construction of knowledge in students. Teacher help the student to remember the knowledge and the information in the most appropriate way. Teacher encourage as well as give confidence to the students that have the ability to have knowledge. Third, assessment focuses on both process and product, emphasizes authenticity of task. Fourth, materials are varied and include manipulative. Math lessons are common classroom application of manipulatives because they easily allow students to physically apply the concept of addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. For example, students could play store with money that they create in a separate class project. And lastly, student work in group.
Six ways to help students understand math. We all know that mathematics is a complex subject to teach. In order to help students to understand this subject, we as an educator, we should find ways on how to convey the ideas in every lesson effectively and make it easy to remember in the future, because it is the main goal of mathematics education. We should provide many examples. We need to explain deeper and tackle every ideas that are possibly related to the lesson. And the most important part is that we must ensure that the students understand the whole concept of each lesson or content and not only memorizing the shortcuts, pattern, or anything, because they might be confused or there is a bigger problem that they will encounter in the future. So here are the 6 ways to teach mathematics. Number 1. Create an effective class opener. So to start the class, we will set the tone by representing the agenda of the lesson. We can ask students if they have questions about the topic. After that, we will present a warm-up problems. These problems must evaluate the students if they understand the previous lesson, and also in preparations for the new topic that we will discuss. Example of this, we will present a clear objective and the goal that we can accomplish when the class ends. And then we will ask the students if anyone can remember the last topic that they discussed last time, and after the student share his or her idea, we can now explain and make it as an introduction to the new topic. Number 2. Introduce topics using multiple representations. In class, we should be creative and must use many strategies in representing lesson in order for the students to fully understand the content and that we are teaching. We can use manipulatives, present an image, or we can use symbolic representation. It is proven that the students will have an intellectual comprehension if the topic is presented in multiple representation. Example of this, we will use a graph to present the idea, or we will use a DIY model to represent a theorem and demonstrate it to the class. Number 3. Solve the problems in many ways. This means that we as an educator, we must demonstrate many ways on how to solve the same problem. This is important because it helps the students to understand this topic in different approach. Aside from that, the students can also choose the easiest method that they are going to apply, or the techniques that they are comfortable with, and use this as their advantage. The idea is simple. The more methods or techniques that the students are introduced to, the more knowledge they can get. Example of this is solving quadratic equation. In solving quadratic equation, we can use four methods: factoring, using the square roots, completing the square, and quadratic formula.
The number 4 ways to help students understand math is show the application. In this part, we would always be able to demonstrate how every concept can be applied to the real world, and when that's possible, it helps improve students' understanding, because more likely students want to learn a concept if they think it will be used to them. We will show them a variety of ways that the math concept they're learning can be used, so you should make it fun and interesting. For example, give them a word problems. They will be more likely to try and connect to it and learn. And the number 5 ways to help students understand math is have students communicate their reasoning. Students need to explain their reasoning when solving problems in order for the teacher to determine if every student truly understands the objective for the class period. It is necessary for each student to communicate both orally and in writing by giving them 5 to 10 minutes to discuss their reasoning with each other, while exploring multiple ways of solving the problem. One example of this is giving the information that James is a spider. It is reasonable to conclude that James has 8 legs. Likewise, given the information that Sally's room is rectangle, 4 meter wide and 6 meter long, it is reasonable to conclude that the area of the room is 24 square meter. And the last ways to help students understand math is finish class with a summary. In this part, everyone can get lost in the class period, and it's easy to lose track of time until the time and class is over. The final 7 minutes might be the most critical in making sure that students have understood the day in learning objectives. One example of this is a group work or quizzes. The second is reviewing the objectives for the class period and brief discussion. And the last is previewing the homeworks together to avoid any confusion.
Now let's proceed to Dale's cone of experience. This is a very helpful strategy that you can really relate in your everyday life. As you can see, the cone is divided into different percentage. We have 10% at the top, and down to the bottom are 20%, 30%, 50%, 70%, and 90%. The question is, what are these percentage all about? These percent represent the retention of knowledge, or how long can students keep the knowledge being absorbed. To understand better, let's start from 10%. It indicates on what we read. So for example, in today's situation, modular distance learning, only 10% of knowledge are being absorbed. Have you noticed that as you proceed on reading, you tend to forget the details that you have read, and you need to read it back again to fully understand? Because only 10% of what we read are being absorbed. Next is 20%. This indicates on what we hear. Therefore, it is believed that only 20% of knowledge are being absorbed through hearing information. So for example, the teacher is explaining steps in solving derivatives. Our student Mario is carefully listening. Therefore, he can directly understand the steps. But after minutes or hours of listening, Mario might get confused in understanding. And this is the moment where he is having trouble in recalling information on what the teacher said. And as a result, Mario will be left behind during the discussion since he is having trouble in remembering what the teacher said. Just like for now, as you are listening to our video presentation, did you still remember the discussion from the other groups? Yes, but only 20%. Now, let's proceed to the next percentage. This indicates on what you see. So for example, is watching videos or viewing images. Let us have this image here. Try to remember this image for 5 seconds. Now, can you remember where the image is? It's very hard to remember it, right? Because only 30% of our memory is capable to retain on what we see. Next is 50%. This is the combination of what we see and what we hear. So for example, like listening at the same time watching tutorials on YouTube like how to solve math problems. So for instance, Mario is having trouble in Fibonacci sequence. He decided to go on YouTube because he can understand it easily through watching. And while watching, Mario can replay it back until he gets it. But this learning is still not enough to acquire knowledge. We need to level this up until 70%, which is by saying and writing. So, since Mario is watching tutorial, it will be much effective for him to learn if he writes down his solutions and saying the steps to practice to remember its flow. And if the teacher asks Mario about his assignment, he can now answer it correctly because 70% of knowledge is being retained from what he say and write. And for the last one is the highest of them all, that is 90%. So going back to Mario, if the teacher asks him to solve on the board, he can do it correctly, simulating a real experience problem. And by doing so, the knowledge acquired will be last longer. And this will be helpful for Mario for his next exercises. Overall, Dale's cone of experience are both helpful to students and teachers. Thus, teacher will make a plan to different kinds of learning experience in order to create the most effective learning environment. And that would be all for our video presentation. Thank you for watching.